I want to ask you a question about your organization. If your three most senior leaders resign tomorrow, who would replace them? Not eventually, not after an 18-month search, not after hiring a consultant and running a 6-month external process. Tomorrow. If the honest answer is we do not have anyone ready, your organization has a succession gap. And it is one of the most expensive risks most organizations carry without ever putting a number on it. Most organizations plan for succession the way most people plan for emergencies. They think about it when it is already too late. A senior leader announces his or her resignation or becomes suddenly unavailable, and the organization scrambles. External searches, interim arrangements, months of disruption and instability, all of which was predictable, all of which was preventable. I have worked with organizations across Northeast India for several years now, corporate, PSU, academic, government, and the pattern is almost identical everywhere. When I ask leaders, do you have a succession plan? The answer is almost always yes. When I ask, are the people on that plan aware they are on it? The answer is almost always no. When I ask, have those people received any specific development toward the roles they are being considered for? The answer is also almost always no. They have a list, they do not have a pipeline. And that distinction between a list and a pipeline is everything. A list is names on a spreadsheet, updated once a year, filed somewhere nobody reads. A pipeline is a living system people deliberately identified, explicitly developed, actively invested in over years before they are needed. Three things that actually build a real leadership pipeline. Shift 1. Identify deliberately, not by accident. In most organizations, high potential leaders are identified informally. The manager who keeps getting mentioned in corridor conversations, the person who seems ready, the one that everyone agrees has something special. Informal identification feels natural, but it is also deeply biased toward people who are visible, who communicate in the dominant style of the organization, who look and sound like the current senior leadership. Quiet excellence gets missed. People who are outstanding but not loud, who deliver consistently but do not self promote, who would make exceptional leaders but who nobody is talking about in those corridor conversations. A real pipeline requires deliberate identification, explicit criteria, a structured process that looks across the organization systematically rather than relying on whoever surfaces in informal conversation. The question to ask is not who seems ready now, it is who has the capacity to grow into a role two levels above their current position. And what evidence do we actually have for that assessment? Shift 2. Develop in role, not in programs. The instinct when identifying high potential leaders is to send them somewhere, an MBA, an external leadership program, a prestigious residential course. These have value, but the research on leadership development is ambiguous. The majority of meaningful development happens through on the job experience, not classroom learning. Stretch assignments, exposure to senior decision making before they are ready for it. The opportunity to lead something significant with appropriate support and genuine accountability. And this kind of development requires deliberate design. It does not happen by accident. It requires a senior leader willing to create the conditions to bring a high potential person into a room they would not otherwise be in, to assign them a challenge that stretches their current capacity to debrief the experience honestly afterward. One conversation, one assignment, one room they should not yet be in. These are the things that develop people in ways no classroom can replicate. Shift 3. Make it explicit, not implicit. This is the shift almost nobody makes, and it is the most important one. The most damaging thing an organization can do to a high potential leader is develop them without telling them. When development happens implicitly, when stretch assignments are given without explanation, when exposure is created without context, the person does not know what is happening. They do not know they are being prepared for something. They do not know what the organization sees in them or where it sees them going. And so one of the two things happens. Either the person leaves for an organization that explicitly values and articulates what it sees in them. They go somewhere that actually tells them they matter and where they are headed. Or they stay but develop in the wrong direction because they did not know what they were being prepared for. They made their own assumptions, and those assumptions were wrong. The conversation is simple, direct. It takes 20 minutes. We see you as someone with significant potential. We want to invest in your development toward this kind of role. Here is what that looks like practically. Here is what we are asking of you in return. That conversation, honest, direct, specific, retains people more effectively than any retention bonus, any salary increase, any flexible working arrangement. Because what people want more than anything else is to know that someone sees them, that their future here is real, that they are not just doing a job, they are building something. I worked with a senior HR leader in a large PSU organization in Assam. They had lost 3 senior leaders in 18 months. Each departure caused disruption. Each time there was an external search. Each time there was months of instability while the role was filled. When I asked whether they had succession plans for those roles, the answer was technically yes. There were names on a document. The document existed. The process had been followed. But when I asked whether the people named in that document knew they were in it, the answer was no. And when I asked whether those people had received any specific development toward those roles, the answer was also no. They had a list, they did not have a pipeline. We built a process over the following 12 months, not a complicated process, 3 things only. Explicit identification conversations, senior leaders sitting down with high potential people and telling them directly what the organization saw in them. No ambiguity, no implications, direct. Stretch assignments designed around the specific gaps that matter. Not generic leadership development, but targeted development for the actual roles being prepared for. Named senior sponsors, leaders who were actively invested in the development of specific people, not passively supported, actively involved. 2 years later, a fourth senior leader left. The internal candidate was ready list. The transition took 3 weeks instead of 6 months. The HR leader told me something afterward that I have thought about since. She said, the difference was not in the process. The difference was that for the first time, people knew we saw them. They knew we were investing in them and they stopped looking elsewhere. The succession gap closed. Not because of a program, because of 2 years of deliberate, explicit, honest development. Here is your challenge this week. Identify your 3 most critical roles, the roles where departure would cause the most disruption. Then ask 3 questions. Who is currently being developed for each of those roles? Do those people know they are being developed for them, and what specifically is happening in their work right now that is building the capability they will need. If you cannot answer all three questions confidently, you have a succession gap. Tell me in the comments, does your organization have a real succession plan or a spreadsheet with names on it? I read every reply. CHROs and HR leaders, if you want to talk about building a real leadership pipeline, DM me succession and let us find some time. And Bikash, Kalita, see you next week.